Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, January 6th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Today's topic, Bob Davis. The Hall of Fame sports broadcaster who retired in 2016 has a new book called The Dream is Real, My Life on the Airwaves. The book is a collaboration with Jeff Bollig, who has a couple of other KU-centric books to his credit, and the three of us had a great time earlier this week talking about Bob's career and his years with the Jayhawks and Royals. At the end, Jeff tells us how to get a copy of the book. So let's get started with Bob Davis. But first, you'll hear two of his signature calls, both from the same year, 2008. First, Kansas forced overtime in the NCAA basketball final against Memphis when Mario Chalmers buried a three-pointer with 2 seconds remaining. Then, the following football season, in November, Kansas defeated Missouri at Arrowhead Stadium on a final minute completion from Todd Reesing to Kerry Minor. So here we go.
71% on the year at the line. Tonight he's 2 for 2. Both were at the end of three-point plays. So he may be a one-and-done guy. Derrick Rose to the free throw line. For the free throw, 10.8 to play. It is up. No good. It bounces out. Not over yet.
Well, Kansas going to come down the floor, probably play a 1-4. Mario up top, or actually probably Sharon. 4 guys down on the baseline. Drive and pitch.
Rose for the second shot. It is. Good. It's a 3-point Memphis lead. Hawks need a 3-point basket. 10.8. Here they come. Collins. 7 seconds to go in the game. Collins got pushed. Ball's down. Chalmers shoots. Oh! 3. The game tied. 2.1. Memphis inbounding. A half-court shot. No good.
Unbelievable
Overtime.
shot.
Overtime.
Wow, how about that shot? That play was almost over when Sharon Collins got bumped, stumbled a little bit. The ball coming off, he's able to get it and come back to Mario. And unbelievably, Memphis doesn't get all the way out on him out there. They got a little bit close to him, but not close enough. And just a huge 3 over the top. What a comeback.
Reaching with the ball. Here comes pressure. And he's flushed out of the pocket. He throws. Got Meyer. Touchdown! 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 Kerry Meyer!
Reesing avoided pressure. He stepped up inside the tackle, stored it outside. Meanwhile, Kerry Meyer carried on his route. Came open late. The gunslinger hit him in stride.
Well, I'm just happy as I can be to be joined by Bob Davis and Jeff Bollig, who collaborated on the book, The Dream is Real, My Life on the Airwaves, Stories as Told to Jeff Bollig by Bob Davis. I think I got that right in some order. I think the words are right, and you can figure out the order, but
yeah,
that'll play, won't it? I mean, glad to have both of you on, and Bob, it struck me when I saw the cover of the book that The Dream is Real, of course, is your call from the championship game of 1988. And it also, as I was going through the book, really enjoyed it. It struck me that it can apply to your life in broadcasting as well. You sort of did live a dream life, did you not?
Well, the alternative was, are you kidding me? You did that? No. It's been a great run, great fun, and, associating with people like you and other media types. But, we have sports because it gives us a release, right? And please release me.
Yeah. So let's start with the origin. I know you've been thinking about doing this, you and Jeff on the collaboration. How did he finally talk you into it, or you talk him into it? How did that come about?
I think he threatened me. Jeff's a lot younger and a lot quicker. And so he'd been wanting to do it, being a Hayes boy, or a Hayes boy, as we would say. He'd followed a lot of this stuff as a fan, and then he came to KU, so he was involved with that. And he just kept saying, we ought to do a book. And Jeff had done some books, the Fog Allen book and a couple of others. And he remembered how much fun he had. And he said, I'm going to jump into that mud pile again and see if it's as much fun this time.
that about right, Jeff?
Well, yeah, it's close. I had approached Bob several years ago, and I think when Bob was working still, he said, "No, I don't want to do it." And really, Bob was just being humble. He was trying to pass it off, and Bob is really a humble person, and I think that's one thing you find just dealing with him. But I thought he's such a great storyteller. He has such a great sense of humor that I don't think, Blair, the media knows it who interact with Bob and the coaches, but really the listeners don't get the full view of Bob's humor, because I think Bob always had too much respect for the game to make it, too slapstick.
Right.
I think Bob's humor is tremendous. And so the stories just needed to be told. And so finally, I think after twisting the arm so much, he said, "Quit it. It hurts. Let's get this darn thing over with." So we did it.
And it was out in the latter half of 2020, out in time for Christmas. Right. And it's I was saddened. The timing of it was, first of all, it was great because we got to see it, read it, but you didn't get to go out and promote it in a way that you maybe would have liked to with the COVID-19 pandemic. I could imagine lines out the door for a book signing. I hope that when there's a solution to this pandemic, that'll be part of the plan to get to get you in stores and in shops to get the Bob Davis autograph copy of this book.
Well, that is the goal. So hopefully not only in the Kansas City, Lawrence, or Topeka area, but maybe Wichita, certainly Hayes as well. That's the goal. So we're hoping for better weather and the end of the pandemic.
What's a pandemic? Oh no, we've all learned, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh, who knew?
No, nobody who has lived through it, and it's quite inconvenient, I must say.
It is a little inconvenient.
Yeah.
I like things to be convenient and readily apparent. Were you here in '84?
I was not. When you started at Kansas, I was still working in Virginia. I was about 5 years away from coming to Kansas City, but you were among the first people who greeted me warmly when I did get here, and I was covering KU. Yeah. So I'm sure everybody who has some kind of relationship or connection to Kansas, as I did as a beat writer in the 1990s, just picks out favorite parts of the book, and mine was your recollection of the Glenn Mason, Roy Williams era, just when they got started, and through the 90s. There were so many good times in that time period. Glenn Mason got the football program up and going, and of course Roy Williams was just a smash of a hire from a real unknown, and you were there to help usher in both of those eras with in your role. That's one of the things that occurred to me as I was reading it, Bob, that you get to know the coaches on a level that others do not, right? You are, you not only host their shows, you travel with the team, you're with them on the weekend when they go. And so I counted down, by the way, you worked with 8 football coaches during your time at Kansas, not counting the 2 interim coaches.
All right.
Counted 3 basketball coaches, which I think is pretty incredible, and a handful of athletic directors. So let's talk about when you got to Kansas in 1984. What were the conditions, the circumstances of that? What you had some job offers previously to KU, but this one seems special to you.
Well, and it was, and it still is, Blair. But we were changing football coaches. I got there for the second year of Gottfried, and so that was an interim deal. And then basketball. Imagine working in one right after the other, which is like consecutively, 3 Hall of Fame basketball coaches, Naismith Hall of Fame, not just some run next door Hall of Fame. Think of Larry Brown, and then what Roy became, and now the current occupant of the office, Bill Self. It's just mind-boggling what we've all been able to witness and enjoy and report.
And listen, with football, if you put Kansas football success on the graph, there'd be a couple of nice rises, but mostly down below the average level is where it would be mostly. But I know you fondly recall the Orange Bowl team, the bowl teams. I remember the Aloha Bowl team was a fantastic team and a great trip and a kind of a breakthrough team for Kansas way back in the day. One of the stories I enjoyed reading was your recollection of Glenn Mason. He had taken the team to the Aloha Bowl, the first bowl game in quite a while, and had taken the job at Georgia and was going to coach Kansas through the Aloha Bowl.
It was a big day. He told me after we did our pregame show, he said, "Davis, you're never going to forget this day." And I thought, what's he talking about? Well, I haven't forgotten it yet. And I've forgotten a lot of other things. But yeah, he was the head coach of Georgia for a matter of hours.
Yes. Blair Mason was such a good person to cover, wasn't he? I mean, gregarious, accessible. He really he was really an interesting person to cover, and that's what I found working in the athletic department. He was always good for a quote, never mind zinging the media once in a while. I know Bob, he kept everybody on toes at KU.
A big personality guy, New Jersey guy who was on the Woody Hayes staff at Ohio State, and listen, came to Kansas and really did turn around the fortunes of KU football, and has done a great job at the Big Ten Network over the years now. So Bob, let's go back to the beginning, and you growing up in small town Kansas, but in an area that loved baseball, and was very, very active in minor league baseball in the summer, and I know you were in the area that produced Mickey Mantle. I'm not sure you got to see him play as a kid. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but did you see Mickey play?
I saw him play. I really don't have a memory of him playing. My favorite player at Independence was the next year when Bill Verdon came.
Oh,
he was a center fielder, and he was an outstanding player. My dad said he was the only outfielder he'd seen at that level who, on the crack of the bat, could turn and run to a spot in the outfield, turn around and make the catch. And I've had a chance to talk to Bill a few times since then, and he has great memories. He still lives in the Springfield area and had a great time in the KOM League, as did several others. But Mickey Mantle was only 17 when he played for the Independence Yankees. He was there one year, then he went to Joplin, hit about 900, and then he got promoted to the Yankees up from Class C to the New York Yankees. And they made him play right field because a guy named DiMaggio was playing in center, and they almost collided one time, and that's where Mickey's injuries kind of started. Yeah,
people who saw him play before the injury said he was the greatest ball player they'd ever seen. The speed and the combination of speed and power was just remarkable. So
right.
So I gathered by reading that we're time and place, right, where you were, and then that and the combination of your dad's occupation at the time really helped build the foundation for your interest in sports.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, it was the radio generation that I was part of, and I listened to games on the radio for years, and we had the mutual game of the day, Major League Baseball with Al Helfer, and it was just a fabulous time to listen to ball games. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I listened, and I loved it. And then the A's came to Kansas City, and next thing you knew, we had Major League Baseball. And I used to tell guys in the media, I was the only guy, there were maybe a couple of exceptions, who had actually seen the Kansas City Blues play. Joe did, McGuff, and a couple of others. But that was a great era, and I was kind of in at the grassroots, not knowing what I was doing or hearing, but I was looking back on it. It was fabulous.
And your dad was a sports writer.
He's a sports editor. One-man staff at Independence Daily Reporter, Independence, Kansas, and he enjoyed that immensely. But later got into the insurance business and left the media. But I know he enjoyed his time. A lot of 18, 19, 20-hour days, but. It was an afternoon paper, so the pressure wasn't there maybe. But he really enjoyed that. But when I got into the media, he went with me a couple of times. One of my first football games was the Fort Hays football game at Omaha. They were in the same conference at the time. And I did the ball game, wrapped it up, great game. I looked at Dad on the air and said, well, I kind of summarized the ball game and said the score and wrapped it up. When the writers are getting ready to go to work, we're kind of going like this, oh, that's done. But it was great. I asked Dad, how was that? And he said, well, I think it was okay. And he kind of chagrined, smile, said, I guess this is okay for you. I didn't know if that was a compliment or deep sadness, but he was resigned to the fact that one way or the other, I was going to be a broadcaster.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. I can remember talking to Eddie Sutton once, and Eddie told me that when he was a boy in Buckland, Kansas, that he would listen in the wintertime to college basketball on the radio, on the family radio, and he would spin the dial and listen to games from Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Wichita State, and I wondered if you had a similar experience listening to college hoops as a youth.
Oh yeah, we moved to Topeka. Actually, we moved to Manhattan first for a couple of years. Then Dad's job transferred him to Topeka. But it was great with KU, K-State. Growing up in Southeast Kansas, I really wasn't much aware of the Big Seven at that time, but I became aware of it and listened to the guys we had here in Kansas and thought, this is really a fun idea. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to figure out a way to get into this racket. And we had good announcers in Kansas. Of course, Max Falkenstein did KU and K-State for many years on WRAN in Topeka. Dev Nelson at K-State was an early hero of mine. There were a lot of good guys in Kansas. Rick Weaver was in Wichita, and he later went to Miami and did the Dolphins for many years. We had a lot of character announcers, and it was the radio era. The TV really hadn't kicked in at that point where you had a game once a week. We had them on radio, and I had my ear up against the speaker listening to every word and thinking, wow, I like this.
And it might be something you want to do as opposed to, say, law school.
Well, I did go to law school for a year. I was I would say I was not a decorated law student, but I did enjoy it. A lot of the guys I went to law school with have become judges and other things like that. But it was just spectacular. I had a cousin who was in broadcasting at the time and worked in Topeka for a period of time. And he was a top 40 disc jockey, which was another era, another way to go into broadcasting. But he told me, when I told him I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, he said, I think you're climbing on a dead horse. And I thought that didn't sound like a very good analogy. Dead horses aren't worth much, but that's how it all started. And I'm so fortunate to literally stumble into a place like KAYS Radio and Television in Hayes with one of the great all-time Kansas owner-operators in broadcasting, Bob Schmidt.
Yeah, right. And listen, that wasn't automatic for you. You went to broadcast after law school. After a year at Washburn, you went to what was a broadcasting school in Kansas City, right? On the building that's on the plaza, and And you were just like everybody else who just finished school. You were a little anxious about that first job. Who was going to hire you? You didn't have experience, and nobody seemed to be hiring people without experience.
Yeah, in fact, my to-be boss told me he was out of town when I was hired. He said we had a policy against hiring people for full-time jobs without experience, and they had a good operation. That was one of the reasons. So, and I kind of was in the right spot at the right time. We had a really good radio news director and sports director, the same guy, a fellow by the name of Keith Cummings, who later moved to Michigan and worked in Lansing. But he moved right at election time that year. And our assistant news director and I did most of the election coverage. So that's what you call being thrown into the fire. We had, it was 1968, and it was a presidential election. Nixon and Humphrey, and Bob Dole ran for the Senate for the first time. A lot of great things going on working at a TV station. Those guys all came through. Now, I don't think Nixon and Humphrey did, but the other guys did. So I got right on that cutting edge. I thought, this is fantastic. This is happening right now. And I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't stay in the political aspect, but it was the excitement of the race and live coverage. And it kind of appealed to me.
Well, you couldn't stay in it because there was American Legion baseball to cover.
And Hayes had yearly contenders for the state championship. They won some state titles, and I went to the 7-state regional, which usually was in Nebraska. But American Legion baseball, you have not really experienced doing sports at the grassroots level until you've done small town baseball on the radio. You have a roster and everybody's name, and you know how to pronounce it. You're way ahead of the game.
And if you're lucky, you've got a press box, but if not, you're at a table behind the fence.
Exactly. You writers don't have to pronounce the names right, but people on the radio kind of like to have their name pronounced correctly, I learned. But that was a great way to get into it and see if you could survive.
I'll tell you what, I loved your schedule when you're in the early years at KAYS. If I see if I have this right, at noon you're part of a TV show. 1 to 4, you did a DJ job.
3 hours of wonderful music. Occasionally a polka found its way onto the air.
At 6 p.m., you were the camera operator.
You had to be versatile.
And at 10, you did the sports for the news at night. So
right.
That's a day.
I was looking for full-time work.
Oh man. I don't know if the kids coming out of school today could relate to the noon to midnight shift in media, but that's what it took. I mean, right?
We used to say the hours aren't good, but there's lots of them.
I'm sure the pay more than made up for it. So
$400 a month was my starting salary. But that went up. I rose to 4.25 before you could hardly turn around because they had underestimated my ability. Jeff Bollig was a little 6-year-old at that time, listening and watching. And so that was the audience to which I played.
Well, listen, for a first job, you must have enjoyed the area because you were there long enough.
I was there 16 years, met Linda there. Stephen was born there. So yeah, a lot of things. You have to be, if not good, at least acceptable. But it was a great place, great first job, great ownership. And Kansas Broadcasting has always had talented people. And Bob Schmidt was an example of that. But it was a great place to work and great community. Look at, they produced Jeff Bollig at Hayes. So there's just Exhibit A.
That's right. Say no more.
Say no more, please.
How did the Kansas job come about? Monty Johnson, I believe, was the athletic director at the time.
Yeah, Monty was, and they had sold the rights to another entity rather than keeping them in-house. And at that time it was Learfield Communications. And I had done some work for Learfield. John Rooney was a really good friend. John was doing Pittsburgh State at the time, and I was at Fort Hays, and John was getting more involved with Missouri, and he was going to miss about 12 basketball games that first year. And he asked me if I could fill in for him. And as it turned out, I did and enjoyed it immensely. And then the Learfield became the rights holder for Kansas, and things were just popping all over. You know, it was so much fun. And Missouri's network was fabulous. He had 50 stations, including KMOX. So that was big, really big.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Sure it was. So you get to Kansas, as we mentioned earlier, Mike Gottfried was the football coach, but Larry Brown had just become the basketball coach.
Right.
Were your first year, you and Larry?
Right.
Okay. And so over the next couple of years.
Actually, it was let me back up. I was there Larry's second year.
Okay.
So that's really when I started working with him.
That's about the time the other coaching characters started showing up on the staff. John Calipari and Greg Popovich.
Yeah. Whatever happened to those guys?
Bill Self.
They became superstars.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? Just the 5 years that Larry coached at KU, the coaching talent that came through Lawrence at that time.
The coaching tree of Larry Brown.
Yep.
Yeah. I've always said, I think you agree with me on this, Larry was a basketball savant. You know, he remembered the inbounds play they used with the Kentucky Colonels against the Carolina, back in the American Basketball League, and he remembered all that. I've heard people say Larry would talk to a wino if he thought he had the perfect inbounds play.
I liked his comment in the book that you made him feel comfortable on the coaches show. Listen, all the coaches are, that's akin to pulling teeth for a lot of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what were some of the secrets of just making a coach feel comfortable on a TV set like that?
Well, in the case of Larry, I wouldn't want to say I was in awe of him, but he was a national celebrity. He came here, and the next thing you knew, there was a feature story in Sports Illustrated about Larry Brown. And he was going to do a lot of great things in basketball and has had a great career. Last I heard, he was still working, He's a great guy to follow around. He's a little different, but when that game's going on, Max and I used to say he knows how much popcorn the guy in Section G has had tonight. He had that much of an insight to what was going on the court and in the building.
No, he was amazing. Wherever he went, it was amazing. I always thought that Larry, I don't know if he got bored, but he just always seemed to need another challenge.
Max always said the two best jobs in the world, the one he just had and the one he was looking at next, whether it was UCLA or a pro job or whatever. But he always kind of looked over in that other court. Oh, that looks pretty good, But Larry was there 5 years and probably, changed the course of mighty rivers like Superman did. But he really got things going in the waning days of the Ted Owens era. It's hard to imagine now, but Allen Fieldhouse played to a lot of empty seats in those days. And that was kind of a turning point. Although Ted had some really good teams, but Larry Brown was a turning point, KU basketball.
And now when you look back on it, it's kind of amazing that the unknown coaching candidate in Roy Williams not only took the baton, but went just as fast as Larry did, and had KU in the national championship game in his third year and his fifth year, and just did an incredible job for a coach who had no head coaching experience at the college level, and it just goes to show the power of a Dean Smith recommendation.
Oh my!
And the acumen of a Bob Frederick, who would listen to a Dean Smith and really took a chance on Roy.
Oh sure, absolutely, but it worked out.
Roy did
a tremendous job. I don't know if people will ever realize the job he did, and to follow Larry Brown as he did, go to Final Fours, win Big 8 championships. Great era, fun times. And the KU tie between Carolina and Kansas it's not as what it was at one time, but it's still strong. And, with Roy down there now, and I don't know if we'll be playing in Chapel Hill anytime soon, but we'll see.
Right. And then he took the baton and handed it to Bill Self, and I can't imagine a better hire that Kansas could have made in 2003 by technically interim athletic director Drew Jennings, but
Right.
they go out and Bill is Bill's the next guy, and Kansas doesn't miss a step in the succession of basketball coaches.
Remember, he was going to take the North Carolina job, and it was the biggest story in the state for 2 weeks at least.
Yep.
And then at the last of the 2-week period, he says, "I'm staying." And a little startled at what had come out of his mouth, but it worked. Enter Roy Williams, North Carolina, but Larry Brown, Roy Williams, whoever, I guess it was supposed to be that way. And we had so many fun times and excitement, and wish we could do that in football.
I know what you mean. I know Kansas fans know what you mean there with the looking for the perfect hire. Maybe
If there is one.
If there is one, maybe he's there. Maybe Les Miles needs some more time, but we'll have to see about that. But Bob, it was an incredible run. Did I read the stats right? Almost. Listen, hey, we can't get this far into it and not talk about 13 years with the Royals, and that must have been, for a guy who grew up a baseball fan and
Right.
sort of the sport that pulled you in, to get the opportunity to broadcast the Royals games. It wasn't the championship years of 14 and 15, but
No.
you saw the build up to it.
You bet. And Paul Splitoff became a very close friend, and I miss him every day because he was so much fun to be around and work with. And that's the other thing about the broadcast business. You work with other people and you have partners, and it's just it's to me a very exciting profession. And I can't spell, but that was before spell check. So maybe I could have gone the other direction. I don't know.
Okay. Bob, it's been great talking to you. Let's, hey, Jeff, why don't you take this opportunity to tell us how they can get The Dream is Real?
Sure. Well, Amazon.com, especially during this time of the pandemic, seems to be a very popular way. So you can order it online there. There are 16 Dillion stores in Kansas, including the 4 in Lawrence, 4 in Topeka, Wichita, Derby, Andover, Hutchinson, and then also in Salina and Hayes. And so they're available there. And we'll have them in some retail outlets in Kansas City here mid-January. I know Rally House is looking at stocking some. And so it is available. We do plan some book signings later on, when things settle down a little. So those are the best ways to get the book.
Very good. And it's called The Dream is Real, My Life on the Airwaves by Bob Davis, as told to Jeff Bollig. Bob, thanks for spending so much time with us today. And Jeff, thank you very much.
Thanks, Blair.
Okay, Blair. Jeff Bollig made it work.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff and everyone who helps make SportsBeat KC happen. Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Hey, we have another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented compadres, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com. kansascity.com/subscribe. If you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email at bkerkhoff@kcstar.com and I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode.